It is no secret that things are looking pretty damn rough for Stadia right now.
Yeah, happy MLK Day, everybody. We're going to talk about Google Stadia and how it sucks and is a big disaster. A big, smelly, poopy duty fest. Oh, man, I love the smell of Roundhouse Stadia funk in the morning.
Hello and welcome to the Stadia planning meeting. Last year, we were the second biggest fail of the year after the release of Anthem. Yes, very proud of us.
Well, that's it then. Google is dead. R.I.P. Google. Apparently, according to the YouTube naysayers, that's it. Game over. I'm going to take my Founders Edition and I'll just throw it in the bin. That's it. No. Let's sort of rewind here. Let's be a bit more rational about things. I was going to rant and rave about all these doomsayers and, you know, announcements and clickbaity thumbnails on YouTube saying Stadia's a load of rubbish and all that kind of stuff. And I was going to get quite ranty and ravey, which I normally do when I see the videos that thanks YouTube for your algorithm, keeps throwing these videos into my YouTube stream, and then I see so many myths and misunderstandings spouted by people who haven't even tried Stadia, and it gets me really angry. But I thought, no, I'm not. If you get emotional about these things, you get angry, then you get into the world of arguments, and I can lecture you about the pointlessness of arguments. I'm here to have discussions, not arguments, and also to try to understand where some of this, I don't know, hate towards Google and Google Stadia comes from, when in my experience with Stadia has been great, as has many people's experience. So that's what this video is really about, to try to understand that. So right from the get-go, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be bold, I'm going to say something here which I don't think is controversial and is based anecdotally on fact, on my experience, and is probably will be replicated by many people if you check out the Stadia subreddit as well. So here we go. Are you ready for this? Stadia does not suck. Okay? Stadia does not suck. Now, before you start typing and saying, yes, it does, you better qualify that. You better have tried it, tested it, and if it hasn't worked, explain what's the issue is with your network, etc., etc. Because if there's a genuine issue for you, then fine, I get it. But for me, Stadia, the tech works. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to, you know, defend Google's sort of launch of Stadia. Clearly, given the sort of bad press that there does seem to be around about it, however misinformed some of it seems to be, there is no smoke without fire. So some of the bad press has to be laid at the way Google Stadia has launched and the seeming difference between the aspiration and claims of what Stadia would be and what you actually got at launch. And I can understand there is a disconnect there. I get it. But what I don't really get is this sort of conflation that somehow, because the PR and marketing launch was bad, therefore Stadia sucks. But the tech is good. The tech works. My biggest concern with Stadia, really, and why I kind of invested in a Founders Edition, was I took that leap of faith that Stadia could prove that you could get a console gaming experience via the cloud. Now, I've tested Project X Cloud. It works. There is a noticeable lag. Of course, I'm only getting it in 720p on my phone. But I kind of got where they were going, but yeah, I have to admit there was a bit of a latency and lag on that. The Shadow PC, it worked quite well, but sometimes the tech was a bit flaky for me, and so I didn't feel I could trust it enough. But I had faith in Google that they would deliver on this sort of latency-free, although it seemed impossible, cloud gaming experience. And for the most, yeah, it has. I have played hours and hours of Destiny 2. I have an Xbox S. Well, I have an Xbox X now, but at first I originally had an Xbox S, And so I know what it's like to play on a console and the experience of that and what the feedback loop is on my controller, etc. And there is no perceivable difference between the two. And I've played hours and hours of Destiny 2, as I said. I played hours all the way through Tomb Raider, 2 Tomb Raider titles, which I also played all the way through on my Xbox S. And the experience, was fine. The picture, compared to my Xbox S, obviously, the picture on Tomb Raider was much better on Stadia. I mean, it's probably not quite comparable to an Xbox X, but to an Xbox S, yeah, it was good as if not better. And certainly Destiny 2 looked better than my Xbox S as well. And that's partly, okay, it was delivered in 1080p, but it was upscaled by Stadia. And we're going to get into the technical details. Generally, the point is, my gaming experience felt like it does when I'm playing on a console. And that is all that I was asking of Google, really, when I bought into the Founders Edition. And I was looking back at the original announcements that Google made to see where this disconnect between what Google announced they were going to do and what was actually delivered as a Founders Edition, where that disconnect is, and whether, Google lied. I don't think Google lied. I think what they've done here is what they should have done is laid out a roadmap of what would be delivered and when, and be sort of distinguished between what their end goal was and where the starting point was. And let's be honest, the Founders Edition, we're sort of paying to partake, as many people have said, many commentators have said, we're paying to partake in this beta exercise. And most of what they've promised, in fact, all of what they promised in terms of what you get for the Founders Edition has come true. So let's have a quick look at, I've done a little kind of compilation clip of some announcements, and we can talk about that.
Imagine you are watching games on YouTube and you discover the latest Assassin's Creed Odyssey trailer on Ubisoft's official channel on YouTube. You will notice the Play Now button. By simply clicking on that button, the player is brought directly into the game in a browser in as quick as 5 seconds.
This particular bit was quite of interest to me, and I think is an absolute killer app. If they pull this off, it would be amazing. But no, it wasn't. So this was an announcement, their first sort of major announcement. I think this one was at E3 about Google. And no, this wasn't available. And in later Stadia Connects, they never made reference to this element of it again. But it is clearly something that if Google, or when I should say, and if they don't, I will be disappointed. When Google introduced this concept, the fact, connect it with YouTube, it suddenly makes it a real killer app and a proper game changer. The fact that you can buy games just by watching, and of course my experience with Stadia also has sort of proven the fact that, waiting for downloads is a pain in the butt. And the beauty of Stadia is you don't wait for downloads. In the store, you go, do you know what, I fancy buying that game and playing it. You click on it, you play it. I think it's once you have it, you realize how much time you've wasted downloading games, waiting around for games to download. I've recently upgraded to an Xbox X, and so therefore I had to reinstall all my sort of regular games, my go-to games again. It took hours, took nearly all day. And with Google Stadia, I've sort of been in the mood to play a game I don't own. I buy the game and instantly I'm playing it. That is a really cool feature. But if they can get, or when they get this idea that you can watch a video on YouTube and then click on a play button, that will be amazing. But no, it wasn't there at launch. And I did notice they never mentioned these, I don't think, as what I sort of scanned the Stadia Connects they did in sort of, I think in June and in August last year. They never mentioned this bit again. But from Google's point of view, once they've got that catalogue of games, this idea will be pretty major. But anyway, let's crack on and see what else that they're talking about here.
When Stadia launches, we will have increased performance significantly to support resolutions up to 4K at 60 frames per second with HDR.
Yeah, that got a big cheer. And the thing is, if you listen carefully to what he says,
when Stadia launches, we will have increased performance significantly to support resolutions up to 4K at 60 frames per second with HDR and surround sound.
Basically up to, but he's not saying every game will be in 4K 60 frames per second. So it does annoy me when people bang on about that. The ability to play the games in 4K 60 frames per second where they've been delivered in that form. And I get it that people expected every single game to be like that, but if the developer doesn't deliver it to Stadia like that. And interestingly enough, this next bit that I'm going to show you is from the sort of the lead from ID Software about Doom. And I think there was an expectation. Well, I'm going to talk about Doom in a minute, but let's see this next bit.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here, Phil and Majd. We couldn't be happier to be bringing Doom Eternal to Stadia and are thrilled to announce that the game will be capable of running at true 4K resolution with HDR color at an unrelenting 60 frames per second.
So there we go. So that was way back in E3 last year when they're talking about bringing Doom Eternal, and we know that they were testing quite extensively at this time, playing Doom in Stadia when they were testing it, just to prove the kind of notion of the lag and latency, because a game like Doom requires that really kind of twitchy response. And the fact there that he was very clear that Doom Eternal would be delivering in 4K 60 frames per second, and it was announced at E3, makes me think that I think maybe Doom Eternal was meant to be ready at the end of the year to sort of launch roughly at the same time as Stadia, and it didn't. And I think if it had, that would have made a massive difference, because then you would have had a genuine game playing in 4K 60 frames per second that really demonstrated the power of Stadia. I mean, Destiny 2 is great, don't get me wrong, but this would have been the thing that really changed it. This would have been the killer app that, you know, their sort of halo, although not exclusive to Stadia, but it would have really demonstrated Stadia to its fullest and given a massive impact. The fact that we're not getting it till March, I think is maybe, I think that we don't know, we won't know, and I'm speculating, but I think there may be, that could have been a part of the sort of marketing stumble, really. And, well, they better deliver Doom Eternal in 4K 60 frames per second. That's all I'm saying. If they don't, then I will genuinely be disappointed. And the game, if you look on YouTube, people have had early access to the gameplay, and the general consensus is it's awesome, and I can't wait for Doom Eternal on Stadia. So please don't disappoint me. Let it be in 4K 60 frames per second. I noticed one of the lead programmers on Twitter is a Vulkan expert, and Vulkan, I'm not an expert in these things, but is the sort of the graphics kind of side of it, and that's what Stadia uses. So I think that's quite promising. In his description, he has sort of 60 frames per second highlighted, so it's a big thing for him. Doom Eternal better deliver in 60 frames per second, and then Google, you might be slightly forgiven. But anyway, that's beside the point. But why did I buy Founders Edition in the first place, and why am I not so disappointed? Well, if we look at what you got for the Founders Edition, or what was announced as we got closer to that time. So this was back in June. Now, before we do that, let's just talk about this. So this I was a little bit disappointed about, or maybe misunderstood.
A stream at 4K 60 frames per second that you can choose to share directly to YouTube from the Stadia data center, meaning your gaming memories will be saved at the highest possible quality.
Okay, so the idea of being able to stream your games in 4K 60 frames per second to YouTube at a click of a button. Now, it's not unclear whether you were sort of streaming it or it was just storing your games, and so you could record them and save them. But I certainly, and that was unclear, and again, they didn't mention that in any of the Stadia Connects that followed in June and August. But I certainly got the idea that somehow I could stream my games, which is something I really want to do. My computer's not powerful to do it to the level that I want to do it. I do on Mixer my Xbox games, but that's slightly different. So it was weird, again, that this certainly was a feature that was missing from launch, but they didn't say it would be available at launch. They didn't make reference to it in the Stadia Connects that they had following up this. And in the Stadia Connects they talk about the Founders Edition and what you would get, and that is basically what I really bought into. And you'll see here what was on offer, and yeah, they delivered what was on offer.
Stadia, you'll need the Stadia Founders Edition, which you can pre-order today for only $129.
Good price.
It comes with 3 months of Stadia Pro for you and a friend, a Stadia controller, and a Chromecast Ultra to play on the biggest screen in your home. And as an added bonus, Founders will already have the full Destiny 2 experience in their Stadia library, ready to play from day one.
Yeah, so we got all that, and that's what I bought into. So, my only disappointment would have been, or my major disappointment would have been if I got all of that, got it, and somehow it didn't work with my setup, or my broadband wasn't strong enough, or my Wi-Fi was just too shoddy or something for it not to work. But I had none of that. I set it up, it worked, it's been working, and I've had a great experience. Yes, I have an Xbox X. I also play on my Xbox X. I also play on my Xbox X. Sometimes I play on my Stadia while my son is playing Fortnite on the Xbox. So I know that the network is certainly capable of handling both. I've not had any issues there. I played hours of Destiny 2. I played hours of Tomb Raider. I played Final Fantasy on Stadia, and I have a great experience. So that's why I get annoyed with all these doomsayers saying, Stadia sucks. Stadia doesn't suck. But the PR and marketing launch was a stumble, but it's a stumble in what is effectively a marathon. And no way is Stadia going anywhere. Stadia is here to stay, I'm afraid. And so people can carry on making these videos about how Stadia sucks, whatever, for the clicks and the giggles, and that's fine. Knock yourself out. But if you think, or if anybody thinks that somehow Stadia is going away, then you are naive beyond belief, because Google have invested heavily in this, and we've still got some major features to come. And let's judge it in 12 months' time, and let's see what features they've added, what the game catalog is looking like. There's going to be another 120 games in 2020. That's what they've said. That's what they've announced. 10 timed exclusives in the next 6 months. 4K coming to the browser near you. Not that many people have a 4K gaming monitor, but if you have, knock yourself out. So lots of features to come. For me, the biggest feature is, come on, get this sort of Stadia YouTube connection going. That's the biggest feature I'd like to see. So I'd be interested to see what announcements they're going to be making in March, which I think is around the GDC, and certainly at E3, and looking forward to Doom Eternal. Yep, the launch was a bit of a stumble and a bit of a mess, but in the long run, Stadia is here to stay. The tech works, the tech is only going to get better, and Stadia does not suck. I hope you enjoyed this video. A bit rambly. I didn't want it to be too ranty. Please like, subscribe, all of that, and check out my other videos coming very, very soon. And until then, goodbye.